Hello, folks. Welcome to the Fundamentalists podcast. We're coming at you live from the Fundamentalist studios here in Los Angeles, California. My name is Elliott Morgan, and I'm here with Peter Rollins. This is an episode particularly about fantasy, but before we get started, you should know that this is one of the very few episodes we've done for the Fundamentalists that have been before 3 p.m. In fact, it's even before noon, guys. It's about not even 9 o'clock. So this is a morning episode in which, typically because of that, Pete now will be on his best form. Yeah. He's going to be so welcoming and so excited about the topic at hand. And I'm going to be speaking at an octave that's a little lower than what it should be.
I was impressed, man, because when you said the morning, I had a meeting planned for 7 a.m. in the UK, and then you texted and went, no morning, I'm like literally coming over soon. So I pushed that to the next day.
Really? Well, thank you.
I never expected, I think morning to you is like 10 o'clock. Morning to me, I get up at 5. You know?
I know. As soon as I said morning and you were down for it, I was like, he might have a different definition of what morning is.
I've got a different definition of your definition of what morning is. Yeah, I was thinking your definition of morning is like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
But I was
so this is okay.
So this is great. This is me at my bed. I love the mornings. Like
as I was leaving, Grace was like, "Are you okay?" Because we have to we're going to, for my birthday, we're doing a little Palm Springs work, basically. But
and happy birthday officially in front of people.
Thanks.
I've obviously privately said happy birthday to you, but
yes,
it doesn't count unless it's public.
That's very true. You did the Instagram story too, so you've done everything that is necessary. But yeah.
Oh, in fact, and I only did the public thing there. I didn't actually wish you a happy birthday privately. Yeah. We were talking about your homework. That was it.
That's instead. Right. Yeah. I was like, oh god, do homework. I'll like it. And then you were. Then you gave a rebuttal to my homework, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it today. I shouldn't have. I opened the can of worms.
I shouldn't have sent that quote.
I knew he was going to have something to say about it. I knew he was going to have a point. That's a good point, but I'm sure I can't wrap my head around it. But it was all very fun, and now I'm 34 years old, so I'm older now.
Yeah, you've beat Jesus.
I beat Jesus.
Yeah, nice one. None of us expected that.
Yeah,
it's the one thing you've beaten them on.
34 does feel older. Yeah, it is. 34 is definitely feels. I was like, oh, this is kind of like mid 30s. Like I did have a moment on my birthday where I was like, I'm 34 now, and I had to like say it in my head to like make it cement, because I think a lot of it too is just being in quarantine and being in isolation, where just every day does feel like the same. So when it's my birthday, I'm like, wait, this different now. And then I kind of forgot about it again.
My 30s, I love my 30s, man. I really did. So 30s are good.
I'm having a good run so far, but...
And by the way, see that, just wanted to remind myself, the toilet thing is about flushing.
Dude, you're right. And it's gotten so much bluer.
Yeah. You've just got to have a toilet that's only for... certain, like you don't use very often for urination purposes. Have you got a couple of bathrooms?
Yeah, I got a couple bathrooms.
So you have a bathroom that's kind of like you don't use very often, and then it'll be very blue water when you flush. But anyway, just wanted to give you that advice.
It's gotten so blue, and I think it's taken some time to fully. And even the one that doesn't have 2 tablets in it, still very blue.
Still very blue. Okay.
So it's coming around.
Okay, that's.
And I'm sorry that I gave you such a hard time about it, and was so gripey about it. That was not fair to you, and I'm sorry. I
accept the apology, sir. Let's move on from it.
I know. We just put it behind us. My goodness, it's just so tough to talk about. So fantasy.
Yes.
What is this about? What is this?
Yeah. So I was thinking of, fantasy is so key to all of our lives. We fantasize. We have sexual fantasies. We have daydreams. We have weird fantasies that we're not even in control of, that we fantasize someone's outside the door whenever... we kind of know there probably isn't somebody there. So fantasy it's such a central part of our lives about being human. But it's kind of hard initially to work out what is fantasy. What is its purpose? What does it do? Why do we fantasize? So I thought we could talk a little bit about that.
I love that. I would love to know why we fantasize. I mean, I assume it's because it's such a fun thing to do.
Well, yeah, that's that. And that kind of gets us to the nub of the issue, is because... it seems like fantasy is only connected to creatures of language. It's only connected, as far as we know, to kind of then speaking subjects. So one of the ideas, Laplanche, a French psychoanalyst, wrote this very good piece called Fantasy and Sexual Origin, something like that. But basically argues that what fantasy does is it's not directly enjoyable. It allows us to enjoy our enjoyment. So we have objects that we desire. Fantasy is a narrative that allows us to desire our desire. It makes certain objects desirable. The purpose of it is to kind of like make some objects in our lives sparkle. So, for example, I'll give you an example. If someone is fantasizing about making it in LA, right, and say they're a famous actor and they've lots of money and they've got the object of their desire, but they no longer desire it, they've got it, they're just bored. What they will do then is maybe they'll fantasize about, oh my goodness, I wonder if I'll get my next job. I wonder if my ideology is in line with Hollywood. I wonder if I'm a has-been, right? So they start to fantasize all these things that could go wrong.
Negative things.
Negative things. But that fantasy then allows them to enjoy what they have. So they can actually, so the fantasy makes the object desirable again through the threat of it going away. Or if a couple are completely bored of each other, then sometimes jealousy can make the person desirable again. So you have a fantasy that makes an object, renders it desirable, gives us a kind of positioning in relation to it.
I was thinking about how, like, the whole making playlists for people, when which I just still love to do. I think it's one of the most fun things. But you make especially in like high school and college, you'll make a playlist of music and you'll send it to somebody, like, here's a great playlist to listen to. But then what you inevitably do, at least what I would inevitably do, is I will then, after I have made the playlist and sent it, I myself will listen to the playlist to get a feel for the playlist, and it's like I get to re-listen to the music and experience it through the eyes of the person that I sent the playlist to, which allows me then to actually experience the music, even though I've heard all of it before, in a new way. And it's like I'm engaging in a little bit of like weird, subtle role play that just for the purpose of getting to relive the music a little bit.
That's very good, because what we tend to think is that we make a playlist because we desire somebody, but we don't fully consciously understand that it's the making of the playlist that increases our desire for the person. Hence, the person who listens to the playlist most, 9 times out of 10, is the person who makes it, not just like a love letter. The person who reads the love letter most is the person who wrote it, not the person who gets it. In fact, so much so that a lot of people write love letters and don't even send them. Because the purpose of the love letter is a type of fantasy that generates desire. And so that's a good thing. I never think of that in terms of those playlists, but often we engage in those types of fantasy rituals precisely to render the object of our desire desirable or more desirable.
Yeah. It's like getting a little VR, putting on a little VR headset for a second and being somebody new and getting to experience, but at the end of the day, it's just the same music you've been listening to nonstop. It's very fun.
I mean, and the other thing is then you can, and this is weird, but we've probably all experienced it. You can desire somebody, but if the fantasy that sustains the desire is ruptured in some way, and it could even be a simple thing like is there a Billy Joel song about there was a song I was listening to, and it was about how he fancied this woman until she cut her hair, and then he no longer fancied her. So the hairstyle was fantastic, and as soon as it changed, the desire just went. And and it can also turn on again. Someone you break up with that you don't desire at all, and you're moving on. As soon as something happens, your desire is reinvoked. So some fantasy is enacted that makes them desirable again. So fantasy doesn't give you what you desire; it makes certain objects desirable. And Hollywood movies are a type of fantasy.
Well, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, and like, because often you'll get sometimes some movies you'll get a couple at the beginning, and they're not happy, and then they go through a whole series of things, and at the end, they're where they were at the beginning, but now they are happy. Now they desire each other, and so in a way, all of the stuff that had to happen through the movie was a phantasmic structure that would enable them to desire what they already had. So they already had what was desirable. They were in a couple. I think maybe Mr. and Mrs. Smith might have that structure, but you've got a couple, but they're bored, they're not happy. They, through fantasy, just return to where they were, but now they desire where they were.
I like that. There's it also just, and I hate to bring up this subject because it is it's so talked about, but the idea of cancel culture. Lately, I do think that there are. I mean, I'm guilty of this for sure, but
You've cancelled a lot of it. You get online a lot.
I get canceled
right there.
left and right. And I cancel here. I'm going. But it does seem like a lot of people are so obsessed with the idea of being canceled that there is a fantasy that allows them to believe that this industrial Hollywood complex is like out to get them, which alleviates their need to be more productive and more out there.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's everybody. I think mostly, if anything, it's me putting myself in that person's that imaginary fantasy. I'm just speaking through fantasy my own anxieties.
Oh yeah, no, that's very true.
Welcome to the Fundamentalists.
Because I think that's very insightful. Because there's two things can happen. There's reality can happen, and there's your libidinal fantasy. So, if you hear a stranger at the door, and you think there's a murderer, that's completely rational if it's late at night and you're on your own and there's some weird sounds. But that's not necessarily fantasy. Fantasy is if there's a creek and you immediately go there, right? That's a type of fantasy. So in the same way, but the problem is they interconnect. So what happens is often our fantasies look for real things to latch onto, like what are those things that latch onto ships?
Barnacle,
like a barnacle. Your fantasy is looking for some reality. So maybe you're always looking to go out with somebody who's unfaithful, because that's your fantasy, and so you want it to relate to something in reality. So sometimes people fantasize about some problem in their life or some danger, like maybe being cancelled, that is a real danger, maybe in their line of work. So they can always say, "Oh, it's a real danger."
Yeah, but it's not to say it's not a real thing.
Yeah, it might have a phantasmic dimension to it for some people.
Yeah, you like to say that phrase, "hitching a ride." It'll hitch a ride on your. Yeah, I love that. That's very fun. Aren't we all kind of just living in a constant state of fantasy all the time? Like, isn't it? If you break everything down, isn't it a little bit like? There's always a little bit of a layer between the what we're saying and what the reality is.
Very true. And the exception, or the closest to the exception, are people who don't desire at all. So people who are depressed or melancholic. So depression and melancholy in different ways are when someone no longer desires. And actually, that's why a lot of people go to psychoanalysis, is not because they haven't got what they desire. It's because they can no longer desire.
Yeah.
There's a failure in their fantasy, and so nothing is desirable. The world is pretty much grey. They don't want to get out of bed. They don't want to eat. They don't want to, and so that's really a fundamental failure at the level of fantasy. Yeah. But even then, you're right. There's always, as creatures of language, there's always some level of desire going on beneath that.
What do you think? When you think fantasy, is there a connection between the truly like the fantasy genre and like this level of thinking? Like, is there a desire do people enjoy Lord of the Rings because it's so fantastical that they can completely get lost in it?
That's a good question. I
don't think so.
Yeah.
My guess is no.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why it works is because there's something in Lord of the Rings that touches on our desiring structure. So there's something in it that kind of like connects. And that's interesting. Like, the difference between a mythology that doesn't work and one that captures the imagination of millions is there's some truth to the way that we desire in it. So Lord of the Rings is like hit on something because it's so real.
True myth. Yeah. Whereas, because I think it was my first semester of courses, but there was somebody talking about, some paper on the Marvel franchise and how that's sort of like and it was very cynical. It was a paper written probably in like the early 2000s, but it was basically talking about the way that it's actually those myths, they're actually stripped of any kind of mythological functioning, and that they're actually like just Hollywood, like really low common denominator things. Whereas like because people hear about these things and they see the Marvel characters and it's Thor, or they see the more DC stuff and they think that it's somehow based in any of that old stuff, but really it's just like comic book stories that have had different costumes slapped on them.
Yeah, which means it's instantly forgettable. I watched a movie last night. I'm really embarrassed about the movie I watched.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll mention it. I'm embarrassed about it, but I wanted to stay up later because there's nothing to do. I end up going to bed earlier and earlier. You know this is a problem that I'm facing at the moment, and you can't go to bed at 6 o'clock. Like, you can't.
No, you can't.
I know it's the age of COVID, but I'm like, right, I'm going to stay up late. So
I'm doing the same thing because
Yeah.
we just put a TV in the bedroom, which we haven't had, and the Muppet Show, the old Muppet Show, is now on Disney Plus. And excuse me, every day it's the same thing where we're like, well, it's 8 o'clock. Should we just go start watching the Muppet Show in bed and kind of fall asleep by 9? And it's just inching further.
I know, it's inching. This is COVID life, man. It's crazy.
Now I'm getting up early and doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I know. You've become everything you stood against.
Everything I've stood against. But what was
the movie was, I can't even remember the name, Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter, like Mila Jovovich, who who I like a lot. She's brilliant. I love Fifth Element. Fifth Element's an incredible movie she's in. But this is interesting because I was watching it and it's instantly forgettable. It's like it's even forgettable as you're watching it, but it's visually kind of like crazy.
Yeah.
So you're getting something out of it, like drinking a cup of coffee. You get something out of it, but it doesn't stick with you like a great mythology, where it somehow speaks in such a solid way that it infects your dreams and all of that. And that's the difference, I think, is like when you're talking about fantasy, there's things we desire in everyday life, but that's not what we're talking about. It's about, in philosophy, what's called the unconditional imperative, or the ultimate concern. Is like, it's something that you're willing to live and die for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that kind of like is beyond just utilitarianism, right? So animals are utilitarian, but it's this beyond of utilitarianism, what Freud called the beyond of the pleasure principle, which utilitarians, I don't think, have an adequate answer for at all, or evolutionary psychologists. So this beyond of the pleasure principle is fantasy. It's when something is infused with such value that you would be willing to, damage yourself in order to get. That's the phantasmic.
I don't know. I gotta get one of those.
Yeah.
I really gotta figure it out. I gotta find one of those ultimate imperatives or whatever.
Yeah.
Unconditional imperative.
Because that's what depression is, and I was there. I remember in my 30s. I said 30s were such a good time, but there was a part of my 30s where I was definitely, my desire just stopped up for a period of time. And I remember it was like, you still do the daily things. You'd still watch something like Monster Hunter. You'd still maybe even go out with a friend and have a drink. But you're literally functioning at this very mechanical, animalistic level. Nothing is animating you to the point that you would go, I would live and die for that. And that's a very crap place to be.
I worry that we're headed into that on a more collective level, like on a social level, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. It's just with everything with COVID, and I'm seeing the way everyone's just sort of locked away, and I've freaked out at times and gotten my bearings a little bit, and then I've gone to school just to have something to do and something to get excited about. But it takes a little bit of really like grinding the gears a little bit. And then you get in bed by 8 or 6. Or 5. I don't know how dark it's gotten.
I can't say, Have you ever seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
No. I wouldn't watch a movie with that title. That's too scary.
That's too scary.
I know exactly what's in that movie.
You did do Alien. Have you done Aliens?
I need to do Aliens. I will do Aliens, yeah.
Aliens is great. I don't know if we talked about this in the podcast, but you were away for a weekend. You guys watched Alien. That's the first time either of you had seen it.
Yes.
which is such a good movie. But
Love
you watched it on a crap little screen, didn't
Yes,
you?
but still good.
Still good?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great movie. But Aliens, oh man. Oh.
You can't not enjoy it if you're watching it inside a UFO.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it was definitely crappy sound and kind of hard to hear him at times. But I'm really excited to watch Aliens. We did watch recently. I turned on You've Got Mail, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
First
from the
movie
90s.
I ever walked out of.
Okay, good. It's shit.
Yeah, it's really, really shit.
I was like, is this movie bad? Like, this movie's bad, I think, maybe on every level.
No. I know that is really shit.
You think it's Sleepless in Seattle?
It reminded me of Sleepless in
Same
Seattle,
thing.
which is the first movie I walked out of.
Same
Yes,
thing.
right, yeah.
Even though I think
I don't think I've seen You've Got Mail.
well, don't do it. But we're watching. We made it through over 2 nights for some reason. I don't know why we committed to it.
Persevered.
But we couldn't do a whole movie in one night. It was probably 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Exhausted. But that movie is about 2 people who immediately they're emotionally cheating on their partners. And they don't establish why, or they don't give a reason for the cheating. They don't give a reason for any kind of like problem in the relationship. You just open up on these people who are fantasizing about the other person writing these emails, and they're writing in this just really like blah, it's like sicky sweet blah, 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 blah.
So is that the fantasy for them, that they require this kind of emotional adultery or whatever in order to sustain any level of desire for each other?
No, I don't think it's that deep. I think that they're just falling in love with a pen pal, and then they're finding out later that the people that they're talking to, respectively, one is the owner of a tiny little bookstore in New York called The Shop Around the Corner, and then he is the head. His name is Joe Fox, and he's the head of Fox Books, which is like the Barnes and Noble of the 90s in this movie. That it's the big bad corporation that's wiping out all the tiny bookstores. And they find out that, oh my God, later he realizes she's the girl, she's the pen pal that he's falling in love with over the email. And so he starts messing with her, so he comes off kind of like an asshole. They both come off like rich people who have no context. At one point, they start berating like a cashier and like holding up a line, and it's like really cringy to watch and very like, it's just tough to see. But then he's a terrible person, and he starts getting mean to her, and then she judges him because he's a big bad corporate guy, and then they end up falling in love, and it's garbage.
Very good. It is funny. I've seen some of these romantic comedies that are made in Hollywood where you have someone who's poor and maybe someone who's rich. The funny thing is, they're all rich.
They're all rich.
So they're the poor person who owns like the small place, lives in some really nice apartment in a swanky place that would cost, like in New York, that would cost millions. So there's this economic element is weirdly stripped out of these comedies that actually also simultaneously rely on wealth disparity. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's like Friends. Friends is another one where their apartments are huge, and everyone's always like, "That's not."
They can afford everything they need and want and clothes and
they have coffee every day, even though Joey's an actor and is struggling to be successful, and then later he becomes like mildly very successful. They don't really talk about it, so he can keep his character be the same. But anyway, the email thing was so, because I was like, oh god, and it's like so old now. It's like so cringy to hear people talking through email and being like, at no point are they discussing the fact that this could be a predator or that this could be, anything
Catfish.
other than someone who isn't good looking. So it's bonkers. Terrible movie.
Well, I will skip that. Well, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and the reason why I was thinking of that one is because it's a good movie. It's a good movie, man, and it's old, so it's not scary. But it's basically, I'm not going to give much away because it's very old. These aliens are basically taking over human bodies, or kind of they're spawning a body that's identical. But the weird thing is they just continue to do work, just like the person. So they go to work every day.
Yeah, that's great.
They do it. So basically, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is almost like what the world would look like without fantasy, where everything continues to function without any spark, without any fundamental desire. And so it's a great look at what's, this critique of society, of a mechanized society that potentially becomes one-dimensional. and where we're all just doing our work and going home and consuming and not infused with some sort of ultimate concern. Yeah. Which then blows up in very unhealthy ways occasionally. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's a great plot and a great analysis of that film.
Oh.
It sounds like. Yeah, I worry that right now we're not even excited, or people tend to not be excited even about their, I mean, I guess this is the definition of being depressed, but it's like the anxiety and the depression and anxiety themselves have almost become like tropes now, and like they're so commonplace that it seems like they've lost their power a little bit, but not in like a healthy way. Like It seems like we've become a little muted right now, and I think that that's scary, because I can understand. I feel like if someone's depressed and going through a tough time, if you were to hear your friend is depressed, you would want to like do everything you could to wake them up, to get them back into living some kind of fantasy, some kind of like sustainable thing that they can live through, to help them along their way. But when it's ourselves, we don't care at all. And it's like, seems like everyone right now is just sort of like, oh yeah, whatever. And then you see memes about it, and you see all these things where it's like, no, this is actually seems like a problem that we should be addressing on a societal level.
Yeah.
But who knows?
I mean, with the very fact that we can't go out as much, we're interacting a lot online. We're not experiencing the toxicity of others in a healthy way. We're kind of like very in our own muted environments, to the extent that we may even, some of us, become a little bit more socially awkward. Like, here's the thing, I used to, if someone has a dog and they're a cute dog, you'll pet the dog. Obviously don't do that anymore, people are worried about. So even when I'm walking around LA, and in the past I might have seen a dog would run up to me and I would pet the dog, so, oh, it's a really cute dog, and you'd chat. You don't do that anymore. And
dude, last time I was coming into your apartment, there was a corgi, and I love
corgis. Oh, that's your weakness. That's your kryptonite.
100%. I saw another one, a different one this morning. But last week it was a tricolor. Love the tricolor ones, and its little back legs were in one of those wheelchairs.
Oh God, this is your fancy. You even actually break dogs' legs just to put them into those.
Yeah, you better watch out. Yeah. Well, corgi legs are easy. They're still nubbies. One good step and they're gone. But
yeah, I've seen that corgi. Yeah, that's in this building. Yeah.
Dude, I audibly was like, oh, and I took a video of it. I took a video, like a little creep, and I tried not to film the person, but I 100% tried to film the dog, because that's the closest I could get, was just to keep them in my phone as part of my digital collection of creepy things.
That's very creepy.
I was like, but I'm not going to walk up to the dog and be like, but I will walk by the dog and make noises in a way that I hope they notice.
Yes.
Like I'll be like, oh. And if that doesn't work, then but anyway.
Well, that's it. So this is you playing into what you're concerned about. Anyway, like I've seen this with a few of my friends and myself, is like there's not this kind of rubbing up against things that can kind of, because the whole point of fantasy, which we haven't got to yet, is, but we've talked about in other podcasts, is there's an element of fantasy that has to be to do with lack. That's why Hollywood movies, again, they always start with some sort of loss, or there's some sort of thing to overcome. The overcoming makes the thing desirable, all of that. And so there has to be some, some obstacles and some difficulties and some, whenever you're not around people and engaging with people, and life really does become, I just have to make my money. People their offices are in their homes, so they're not even having lunch with other people. The fear is your fantasy, your desire isn't being sparked as much. And people are just, and then people are having more vivid dreams as a result, because your lives are more grey. So I wonder if this is connected to another a concern that I have. I think we're in the midst of this kind of religious revival, which is, religions have always been connected with purity culture. So popular religions have always been about what is clean and what is dirty. And it's literally, actually, civilization is about how to deal with excrement, right? Waste. From the very beginning of civilization, it starts when people go, that is dirty, I want to get rid of it.
Poo, gross, bad.
Yeah, exactly. And then popular religions, folk religions, have always been connected with literal and symbolic dirt. Who is clean, who is unclean, how do we manage that? And we're living in a massive purity culture at the moment where people are seeing the dirt within other people or within themselves, and all these purifying rituals for how to be clean, how to find cleanliness, secular religions. And I think it's partly connected to this is the idea that we're all cleanliness and dirtiness are interconnected, that there's something about this lack of being able to tolerate toxicity within ourselves and others actually kind of like generates a more and more divisive and violent society. So I think there is a connection to make between what we're saying about people being more isolated and also this dramatic rise in purity cultures that we're seeing. Yeah.
I'm just glad we got it all figured out.
Yeah.
And that we're good and pure.
Absolutely. And they're the dirty ones.
And then the dirty ones. I had to make myself put away 3-day-old carrot cake last night because I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, I'm just eating. When I was just thinking about this, I was like eating pure garbage.
Oh, yeah.
And like really should have been in the trash. Like not good. Like old cake. Yeah. I ate old cake from Boston Market. I don't know why. And I was like eating it and I was like, it's like there's like a compensating thing where I'm like, am I just destroyed? Is it me? Am I the problem? But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, the divisiveness right now is out of this world. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
Have you noticed, right? This is a thing for me, isn't it, coming from outside of the US, but I don't think it's across the US. I think it's a very LA phenomenon. Is there's all of these, what do they call them? Detoxifying diets or something. You buy like lots of smoothies to cleanse your body, and to get rid of the toxins that are in your body, which is kind of like, it's like whenever, remember those adverts that talk about deep clean, whenever you wash a shirt and it's deep clean. Nobody thought that fabric was deep until those adverts came out, and they would have these like shots of really close in, so you would see the depth of that fabric would be so deep, and the water and the soap would be deep. That's
and
creating,
the soap breaks apart.
So but as I say, like,
or the dirt breaks apart.
Dirt breaks apart because it gets right in there. I'm going like, that's creating a problem that never existed. In the same way, detoxifying your body is like, I don't think there's any science behind this, but I've noticed that there's all of these diets that are and I think, again, this is my example of hitching a ride, that if purity culture there's a religious revival, secular religious revival, purity cultures are kind of in the rise, then you're going to see it not just symbolically, you're going to see it literally. You're going to see more and more people think that they've got toxicity in their bodies that they have to get rid of. They have to spend a huge amount of money to do a month of these weird juice drinks to get rid of this dirt that's within them. I think there's an interconnection there as well.
It's got to be some kind of psychological thing, right?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like what you see physically in the world does usually, not always, but often connects with our libidinal investment. So if you look at someone who's obsessed with getting rid of the toxins in their body, often, not always, they have some idea symbolically of toxins, of dirt that's within them, of something they haven't been able to speak. So I think we're in the rise of purity culture, and it's very dangerous. James Joyce had a beautiful word, chaosmos, and chaosmos is a bringing together of chaos and cosmos, and the idea that chaos is within the cosmos. And so I think chaosmos is a great word for a type of what we need more of.
Yeah.
We have to realize there's a chaos within life and within our being, and that's actually what makes it good, and that's what fantasy is. So there's a term called traversing the fantasy Lacan uses, and to traverse the fantasy means to realize that part of what makes things desirable is the struggle and the impossibility and the obstacles and the antagonisms. And that if basically ideology is the attempt to overcome the antagonisms to get the fantasy object. And to traverse the fantasy means that you embrace the difficulties as well as what you desire, that you somehow enmesh them into each other, that you enjoy the not having, you enjoy the chaos of life, and what you get out of that, which is objects that you really want, you desire.
It's a bummer when there's not really much chaos for people when they're getting more and more isolated. But I guess there is chaos because it's just been probably projected on the
Yeah, and the chaos for me, the chaos is the dangerous chaos, and it's the chaos of purity culture. It's the chaos of there's problem, and if we only got rid of a certain type of people or a certain type of thinking or a certain type of this, then then everything would be better. That's what ideology is. Ideology always renders antagonism contingent, renders it into an opposition that can be got rid of. Fantasy, if you have a non-ideological fantasy, it means that you don't fall for that utopian virus. You don't think that, oh, if only I did X, Y, and Z and got rid of the antagonisms of life, got rid of this group of people, and everything would be wonderful. You somehow are able to embrace the complexity of your situation, try and make a better world, but not falling for the idea of a pure world without antagonism. Because if you get a world without antagonism, it's a world without
he's having
fantasy.
to clear his throat right now because on a psychological level he is having difficulty getting this out.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, so if you get what you want without something getting in the way,
It's happening again.
yeah, that's weird. It's either that or I'm just dying.
Yeah, your final point is just to die.
Just
at the end of the
die
podcast.
on the podcast. You know what? It would do great for the ratings.
Yeah, it would. Thank
Yeah,
God.
I think so.
But no, please. Yeah, I was listening. I just thought it was funny.
Oh yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah, if you fantasize a perfection, if only I got to this, everything would be great, and you get that, then you no longer desire it, and you get into all sorts of issues. But if you maintain the fantasy, i.e., you realize that lack and having are interconnected, and you embrace them both in a chaosmos, then you're going to be a healthier person.
I love that. I think that's a very good note to end on, Pete. I really enjoyed that. I don't have anything to add.
Do you know?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I love the chaosmos. In your accent, it definitely sounds cooler.
Yeah.
Chaosmos.
Yeah.
Chaosmos.
Chaosmos.
I feel like I'm playing movie game. Yeah.
How's movie game going, by the way?
Great, man. Joe's just finished up. I'm making my way through the grammar. He's finished up all the prompts, and we're very excited about it. It's going to be super fun, and we're going to start getting samples in the next month and start to figure out how it looks, and then
Fantastic.
go from there. It's available for pre-order, folks.
Sponsored, Fundamentalists, sponsored by...
Brought to you by the Valley Folks Movie
Movie.
coming
Yeah.
soon. I love this. I think this is wonderful. I think this is a great podcast. I wish I had more to add, but I feel like you brought your A game here, Pete.
That's because it's 8:30 in the morning, so
Yeah.
yeah.
You nailed it. That's very good. Please let us know what you guys think down in the comments below if you're watching this at youtube.com/Elliott Morgan, or you can just tweet at us. You can do whatever you want. Twitter.com/Peter Rollins, Twitter.com/Elliott C. Morgan. All sorts of fun stuff. Peter Rollins on Instagram, Elliott Morgan on Instagram. You get the idea of it. Hope you're doing very well. And do you have any final thoughts? Anything to add on fantasy?
No, I'm good. Any thoughts for you?
I feel pretty good about it. I wish I'd have brought more of I'll fantasize about the idea that I had brought really my A game here. But I think we hit a lot of good points. I think the idea of purity culture is very real. Maintaining fantasy, the grayness associated with it. I love the what is the imperative? The unconditional
the
imperative.
categorical imperative.
Categorical imperative. And the intertwining of lack and having is, I think, on every level, a wonderful concept to keep in mind. I mean, it is literally it's what the core of this podcast is largely about, which is contradiction and that kind of internal thing that you can't really escape. And if you can accept that you can go through life in a much healthier way.
I mean, that's why people go out for, date nights, fine dining, all of that, is you kind of have to have, and don't go straight to sex. Because in one sense, what makes the sex more interesting is the not having it and the rituals, and that then makes it really enjoyable. So again, a date night is about a type of intertwining of lack and excess, of having and not having. And you know, we have to somehow weave those together in our lives. To kind of live healthier, more rich lives, not happier lives, because happiness is a terrible category, but more kind of a meaningful type of life.
Yeah, we should do another episode on happiness soon.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Because it's exhausting. All right, everybody.
All right,
thank you very much.